the flanges, all the blanks need to be taken off. You need to system test each system to make sure that it's okay, because everything that you do in terms of locking it down needs to be reversed. Okay, so that's why the cold layup system is, the disadvantage is you cannot reactivate it like that. It's going to take you time, whereas a hot layup. So if you were thinking, okay, in 6 months' time the mark is going to improve out, so let me take my vessel out of a cold layup into a hot layup, effectively you are reactivating it.
Thank you. Hi Peter. Just one quick question. You said for hot layup you require qualified crew, right?
I mean, you already have qualified crew. You don't need to add anybody to that. What you're doing is you're reducing your staff. That's all.
So it has to be what is the minimum requirement for crew to be on board?
In a cold layup, your vessel's not navigating.
No, hot layup.
I guess at the end of it, we need to check. In a hot layup, you're using your own crew. Okay, you would have to pull in local regulation depending on where you are and how you're moved. And the owner would have to reapply for a safe manning certificate for a short period of time. Would I be right, Ms. Yan?
Yeah, minimum safe manning.
Minimum safe manning certificate would have to be reapplied for that particular period.
That would be less than the original safe manning which you
That would be less than the original, because the vessel's not going anywhere. All you're doing is you're laying up. For that period of time, you drop your manning levels. You would have a temporary manning certificate. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Love you and leave you.
Do you have
See you at the next one.
questions before you leave? Thank you. So we have the next speaker, Mr. Dalit Mehta from Michelin Express Offshore. He'll be talking to us about current trends in offshore technology. Mr. Dalit is a highly professional marine chief engineer with over 27 years of experience and has demonstrated continuous growth, achievement, and impressive leadership in delivering engineering solutions for managing complex operations and maintenance activities within the marine and offshore industry. Mr. Mehta has vast exposure and experience in operations and maintenance, management of offshore vessels, tankers, general cargo, and diving ships. And he also has expertise in new constructions as well as repairs. He is also a sailing chief engineer on board ships before. So the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first time in my life I feel very nervous standing in the stage. The reason is offshore. Till yesterday I used to think that I am the very expert and everything else, but it's all going very downward. I think over the 2 days of the conference here you would have heard many things. It's all true. The basic problem is the foresight is not very clear. The light is not very clear across the tunnel about the oil price that will stay till 2017, 16 and when. This is putting the very high pressure on the owners, as we at the Michelin Express Offshore. We've got 145 worldwide vessels which are under difficult stages of going off hire, reduced charter rates and layups. I think I first of all like to just thank Captain Peter, who really gave a very good insight on the layups. I'd just like to say one thing on the layup and then I start on to my topic. Basically, layup is, I used to always think it's a very natural course of doing a layup and then again reactivating. Last time I did a very small crew boat from AHI. I put it on a layup and again reactivated. Believe me, I was over the top. I did everything wrong. What we don't do is the first thing is the planning. To what level of planning? Earlier days, layup was not a subject. It used to be parked somewhere. You get in some crew and you always reactivate it. But over the time, things have become very, very difficult because it is a commercial effective item. Moment you do a thing, it is okay. But are you doing it right? Are you doing it at the right cost? That is the biggest thing. So basically what the first question and the last question is, please make up a very, very good planning if you're going to do a layup. So you should know what you're going to start, where you're going to do, what are the options, and what are the options for the charter. You just can park it anywhere, but you want it tomorrow vessel in Saudi Arabia, so you are nowhere near it. You can park a vessel at economical rate in Sri Lanka, but what are you getting out of it? So basically there are many, many more questions that what is the prospective charter for that particular vessel, what are the clients that we are offering, the chartering guys are doing it, and what is our end requirement to get a vessel fit for the purpose. You could have a vessel fit for a purpose in Abu Dhabi, but that is not same applicable to Saudi Arabia. So there are many, many detailed and very, very difficult questions that needs to be answered on a layup. But we have done, and we have exercised a lot of things, and we have taken as a template to make it forward going that it is going to be an easy thing. But it's never going to be an easy thing. What it basically needs is a small amount of a teamwork. One individually can miss many things. It's basically when you go for layup, it's operational, technical, charter requirements. All the departments have to come together to do a good layup. Okay? Now coming to offshore industry, I think I didn't want to write too much because there's nothing much to write on it. It's more about meeting you guys and understanding and telling at my viewpoint on the offshore. So I just basically written in the Word format, okay. Marine shipping industry, the offshore OSV vessels, subsector faces another year of hard times. Offshore supply ships which support the offshore drilling platform and offer everything from subsea exploration, salvage to rescue services. The industry that generates more than $25 billion annually is at its peak. But as exploration and production companies drastically reduce rig counts, the fortune of the OSV industry is plunged. What I mean by the rig counts and all that is, basically the offshore industry works on EPC contracts, that is exploration contracts. That first means that they're going to explore an area for another oil find, so they're going to move the rigs. The moment the rigs move, then there is a convoy of the three basically anchor handlers that move along with it. There's a towing operation that takes the basically rig from A to B. Moment the rig is installed in a location, as we all understand, then the PSV, the supply boats, all are required because they continue to supply all the liquids, cargoes, and everything else. Then goes a team around it, like you got a vessel that is standby for firefighting. Then you got a taxi operating boat, crew boats basically that does the offshore workers to be taken up to another vessel that is parked by a side. So suppose you got a 200-man accommodation vessel standing next by it, so then there's going to be food, logistics, and everything else. So basically the offshore industry works in a spread. All the spreads basically, like say example, Saudi Arabia, ADNOC, all they have a multiple spreads in area. So one spread, one charter, Chevron gets it or Shell gets it, and then there's going to be a lot of multiple movement along with it. So stopping up on EPC stops everything. What we're doing basically now is only pumping out oil. That does not need much. You have a rig in a place, taking out the oil in per day barrel. This is just like a petrol station. Tell me, what does the petrol station need? Your car comes, the guy there just fills up the thing and goes back. Is that going to be sufficient business? Not really. Okay, the above competition and limited options of the charter has made vessel owners to make some hard and difficult decisions. Hard-hitting OPEX, dry docking, etc. Subsequently affecting the shipyard business. What happens basically is when all these particular shipping companies and offshore companies are much in a business, subsequently A, B, C, everybody gets a business. It's a vice versa circle. You got ship handlers, agents, dry docking, repair, maintenance, everything works on that particular field. So basically now having to reduce up, everybody is dry. Now what does it happen now? One of the reasons is excess capacity of units affects the many different types of vessels in the OSV market, but the most serious challenges are found among platform supply vessels, PSV vessels, and anchor handling supply vessels. The two major market segments whose operators must respond to radically altered economic conditions. Now basically just as Captain Peter said, now not having to operate these boats, you got to go on a warm or cold layup. Second thing is what kind of manning do we have and everything else. The biggest and the simple question is OPEX. If something doesn't turn, how much can you spend on it? So you're going to be on a negative revenue. And the bigger thing is the capital investment. It's a business end of the day for every company to make some money out of things. If you're on a decline and keep declining, then how long can you decline? Shipping companies continue layoffs, cold stacking of the vessels, and delays in new ship construction. The OSV sector highlights rising debt burdens, which are making it increasingly unlikely that most of the companies can hardly maintain positive balance sheets because serving cost OPEX consumes a greater and greater share of declined earnings. Simply put, demand is declined, and the industry faces intense financial pressure. Oil prices dropped from the $120 a barrel to less than 30, and I think today it's around 50. That's a good news, but that's not sufficiently enough. Okay, the exploration production E&P companies are continuing to slash growth plans for the offshore rig counts. At the same time, there has been decreased demand of OSVs and crews, thereby again slashing growth plans and reducing revenues as vessel usage and day rates get squeezed. Now, what is happening is if there is a small amount of requirement, there could be 10 or 12 owners. Owners are getting into a clash now. One could offer X rate, one is going to go to Y, one is going to Z. So everything is squeezing down to bare minimum. And what does it affect? The crew wages, the quality, and the risk at the business. OSV day rates are down about 40% from the early 2014. Dwindling rig count serve as a negative bell for the increasing suffering OSV market. A trend unlikely to reverse itself because of the oil prices remain low. In turn, fewer active rigs means few anchor handling supply vessels in service. Additionally, constant production at active Chinese shipyards and an easy credit environment for operations help drive up the global vessel count. Basically, what we see, the oversupply, this is one of the biggest things that is always in the market, is the Chinese built vessels and the oversupply. That is also again hitting up the OSV markets and everything else around us. OSV global fleet growth in 2015 and 16 will be almost 18%, and that's quite high number. That has an increase of 35% of the vessels to rig count ratio since the January 2008 rig count peak. The OSV market in Southeast Asia remains weak. Southeast means all Indonesia, Malaysia, all that side is remaining very, very weak. With low utilization levels and low rates caused by the decreased demand and amplified by a significant oversupply of vessels. Malaysia and Indonesia are the key drivers of the regional market, and cabotage rules are in place, which prioritize domestic flag vessels. Vessel owners, including local ones, are competing for utilization. Some owners have responded to the regional slump by deploying their vessels to the Middle East and other parts of the world, where demand is stronger and rates are higher. The oversupply issue could be mitigated by scrapping or selling of the older tonnage vessels preferred by the commercial shipbroking industry. And the low scrap values of OSV gives owners only limited incentive to pair their fleets. Now, if you understand very correctly, Middle East is still not very bad. I would say it's bad, but not very bad. At least things are moving at a very slower pace. But what's happening in the Malaysia, Indonesia, Far East, the things are totally zero. If you go to ASL, Batam, Singapore, if you understand, Singapore channel is basically now fully blocked. If you go for a sea trial, you are basically getting surprised where I'm going to go to sea trial. The channel is almost closed down 75% with the vessels coming up to 3/4 of the way. And when you have to go outside the anchorage area, you're almost surprised at what kind of navigation you're going to do. Same thing if you go to Indonesia, almost the economy is finished. Malaysia, everything is going down and down. But in Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Bahrain, Qatar, something is moving at least, if not at a very higher pace. So what the owners from the other side have done, they've started bringing their asset this side. So you can always find a new owners, new vessels parked all over the place, whether Abu Dhabi, DMC, any place you go in Middle East, you'll find a new flag vessel, new company vessels, everything is parked. And some of them are so very huge that they used to earn $65,000 a day rate. Many of them. I'm not saying only few. Many of them are very high-priced vessels, seismic survey vessels, which are almost parked for around 3 to 4 months or maybe more. In contrast to the Middle East market remains relatively robust because OPEC's decision to sustain production levels and protect market share despite falling oil prices keep the OSV industry in business. The market is relatively open to foreign players, but there are strict registration and qualification requirements that owners must meet before they can compete for contracts. Saudi Aramco and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company remains committed to ambitious 5-year capital expenditure plans to raise production capacity. The OSV market continues to benefit with reports of tendering activity. However, because the market is highly competitive and because owners from other regions, particularly Southeast Asia, have been mobilizing vessels into the area, rates would likely to be fixed at a discount from the prevailing levels. That is the worst scenario for the offshore industry. The way you're getting a boat today, I hope we keep it inside this room, we are getting a price for anchor handler that you are getting it for a crew boat at last year or last to last year. And that is also with a great difficulty, that kind of business we are facing. We are surprised at looking at what the figures that we are getting, what the crew will get it, what the company will get out of this. I think it's really downturn. Hope everybody stays, keeping the fingers crossed, and maybe in the next 6 months' time that everything comes up and better. I think with all that, I have nothing much to say. Thank you. Any question, please?
If you're fine, can we take the question and answer after the next presentation?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. We have the last presentation for today from Sanjay Mehta. He's the General Manager from Emirate Maritime. He'll be talking to us about the rising operating costs for ship owners. Captain Sanjay has over 24 years of experience. Wow, everybody has so many years of experience in the maritime industry. He's a master mariner with over 15 years of sailing experience, mainly on oil and chemical tankers. He has been with Emirate Maritime since 2008 with various departments and positions. With his immense dry docking and new building experience, Sanjay is well versed with commercial, operational, and management aspects of shipping. He has been instrumental in setting up the company office in Mumbai with an aim to provide operational and technical support along with strengthening the relationship with sailing staff. Prior to joining Emirate Maritime, he worked as project leader for new buildings and senior technical superintendent at Advanced Maritime Services, managing their operational fleet, personnel, and technical strategies for new building. He is very experienced in operations, so we shall hear from him.
Press next slide. This red pointer.
This is the next.
Next. This one.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think a little bit extra has been said about me. Yes, I'm still in my learning stages. I was just discussing with a very distinguished guest which had visited us from Sri Lanka. He was the ex-admiral. And when we were sharing our experiences, I was just mentioning it to him that when I was sailing as a master and decided to step ashore, it was about 11 years ago, I felt that probably I know about 80% of the shipping. So when I came ashore, I got into the new building, I joined as a marine superintendent, and in a month's time I realized that probably what I know about shipping is not even 5%. And got into the new building part, took a delivery of almost 18 chemical tankers for Whiteson. And in a 2 years' time, by the end of it, I realized probably, I thought that I know almost about now 60%, 70% of shipping. And then came Emirate Maritime, where I joined as a quality safety manager, and saw a new thing, started dealing with the oil majors, started looking into the operational aspects, and I realized that I still probably know not more than 10 or 12%. Today, probably after 26 years, I believe I would rate myself somewhere around 6 to 7% of the shipping, because there's so many more avenues which we are not aware of. Every day we come to know about new things. Offshore is another sector where probably there's a lot to be learned. Anyways, moving ahead with the rising operating costs for the ship owners. So in any industry, the price of the service or the product must exceed the cost of providing that service or the product in order to achieve a return of investment. In shipping, it is not happening at present. Operating costs are going up while the freight rates generally are not keeping pace. This is more true in terms of bulk vessels. Tankers are still doing a little bit better. Knowing from what shipping is, it is going to bounce back today or tomorrow, but we really do not know when. So just to understand the cost structure, the key variable for the ship owners to survive in shipping markets, the main three are the revenue, running cost, and the finance method which has been used. I have just kind of tried to segregate the cost. You know, the main, from the revenue point of view, the vessels can be given as a bareboat, time charter, or the voyage charter. In a bareboat, the control or the appointment of the crew, the operations is done by the charter. In the time charter, it is by the owners, but directed by the charters. And the voyage charter, it's appointed as well as directed by the owners. Revenue depends on the hire rate in the bareboat and the duration. And in time charter, it depends on the hire rate and the duration again. And in the voyage, it is mostly about the cargo and quantity and the rate, which is as far as the cost is concerned. I would like to broadly put it into the three sectors: capex, opex, and the voyage cost. Capex again is the interest rate, the depreciation involved, and the brokerage. For the opex, which probably we'll be talking in more detail, is crew cost, stores, maintenance, insurance, the admin cost. And the voyage cost mostly deals with the port charges, light dues, stevedoring charges, hold cleaning, cargo claims, bunker fuels, canal dues, etc. When it comes to the capital cost, it depends on how the ship is financed, what is the down payment, how much is the loan amount, the source, the interest rate, and the terms of the loan, whether it is a straight loan, whether there's a balloon payments involved. So the final price is equal to the loan plus the interest, or the cash price plus number of installments. Depreciation, it is a decline in the asset value over a period in which the asset is used. It depends on the cost of the asset, expected salvage value of the asset, estimated useful life of the asset, and the method being used to calculate. In shipping terms, we generally use a straight line method for the depreciation. The initial cost when the ship has been purchased, what will be the residual value at the time of resale or at the time of scrapping. That the difference of that divided by the number of years you're going to use the vessel. And for the daily depreciation, in accounting terms, it is used instead of 365 days, it's used as 350 days. And the residual value, once either it's a sale price, or if you're going to put it on scrap, then it's the light ship into the price of scrap metal. The voyage cost is mostly the fuel cost, which is about 65 to 75% of the voyage cost. Lately, with the fuel prices going down, this probably may have come down a little bit, but still the main cost is still the fuel cost. There are port charges, there are port dues, which depends on the cargo volume, the weight, the GRT, NRT of the vessel. Service charges are involved, and the canal charges are there. Now, fuel charges, which have started going up again recently, marginally, though it is still less than what it was probably in 2008, 2009. Port charges, they are going up. The port dues, wharfage, everything, these all the costs are going up every day. Even the Suez Canal is revising their charges every year or every alternate year. They're doing a lot of widening of the canals, even Panama Canal. The new tariff they are going to come up, the charges are going to be very high. We'll really have to see with the cheap or the relatively economical bunker prices. A lot of owners they do tend to avoid using Suez Canal also. When it comes to the operating cost, if we look into the whole thing, it comes somewhere around 46 to 50% of the whole cost. That is taking out the capex as well as taking out the voyage cost. And in operating cost, the main element, as you can see, the crewing, which is almost about 46%. And this we are talking about keeping in mind that we we have Indian crew. If it is a European crew, or it can go up. We have a administration charge cost of about 10%, insurance, which again varies, but let's say about 14 to 16%. Repair and maintenance 14%, stores and consumables about 14%. The crewing cost goes basically into the basic wages, leave wages, overtime, allowances, standby wages, sick wages, social expenses, union dues, welfare, gratuity, provident fund, and then comes the recruitment, repatriation, agency, medical, welfare, uniform, documentation, the visas, travel arrangements, training, miscellaneous includes the crew hiring, the claims, victualling is their bonded items, launch charges for connecting the. So here you will see 79% of the crewing cost is the wages, and this is a cause of a concern because it has been rising every year. Because it's a direct thing from demand and supply. The number of ships are coming more and more. Typically, even if it's a fast process, still anybody who enters as a cadet, for him to become a master mariner still would take minimum about 8 to 10 years. So yes, it is a concern because now, and on top of that, because of the increasing costs or the operating cost, people have started doing cost cutting. The first thing they probably could look at is cutting down the training, which is giving us untrained or not so competent crew, which gives rise to a lot of claims or some of the other mishaps which cost money. Then we have stores. We have deck stores, engine stores, cabin stores, electrical stores, medicines, charts, publications, consumables, lube oils, paint, chemical, gases. Lube oil is a big cost. Then we have repair and services and spare parts for the main engine, auxiliary engines, machineries, deck equipment, cargo system, nav equipment, automation, communication, LSA, FFA. Why I added communication here? Because this again is a cost which is going up quite a bit in the last few years. The IT systems needs to be upgraded. New softwares are coming up. So there's internet on board nowadays. So those charges are also going up. Then we have again a dry dock cost. So insurance costs vary from ship to ship, somewhere around 14 to 16%. Hull and machinery is about 2/3 of the insurance cost. Then we have P&I, COFR, loss of hire, war risk, legal defense, mortgage, other insurances. Insurance industry has developed quite a bit. Nowadays they even come up and they can make a tailor-made insurance scheme for you. So you just need to know what you need to cover yourself for, and they will come up with something or else, which is good. Then we have administration cost. What I would like to put in here is the show-based administrative cost, which includes the superintendents, the office cost, the management charges, communication cost, audits, inspections, flag state, class society charges. Then we have ISO 9000, 14000, 18000, TMSA, the tanker manager's self-assessment. This itself, you may not be able to quantify what actually goes into the TMSA, but this again is the main driving force, which forces you to, or which guides you to do so many things in a particular manner as guided by the oil majors, with stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So they have the best practices. So if you are anything below stage 2, you are out of the business. So you have to have stage 2 plus, and to comply with that, you have to do certain things in a manner they would want you to do. So this again is a cost factor. Then we have a business development. Now this is basically what the cost we have. And now coming back to the rising operational cost, this is some figures which I picked it up from the Steve Moores. This will give you an estimate or an idea how the operational cost has gone up from the year 2000 till 2015. When I say operational cost, I'm including the crewing, the stores, the spares, the repair, the dry dock, insurance, and the administration. I'm not including the voyage cost. I'm not including the capex or the finance cost. So we've taken a base as 100 in 2000, and then as compared to that, we have seen how it has gone up. If you see in about 2005, the average year-on-year growth has been about 6.6% on the container vessels. The red line is the container vessels. The gray line is the dry bulk, and the blue is the tankers. In bulk carriers, it went up to 4.2, and tankers 5.7. And the important thing here to note is in the year 2008, if you can see the spikes in the year 2008, this is just before the markets crashed. And that is the time when there was a hike of almost about 16% of the operational cost in each and every sector. And majorly it was because of the crewing cost. The crewing cost at that point of time went almost about 10 to 12% up. And that's the reason it went up, and then there was a crash and everybody started cutting down, and that's why you can see a dip after that. So 15 years down the line, 15 years average, if you see from 2000 to 2015, year-on-year basis, we have the container cost going up by 4.3, bulk carriers about 4, and tankers about 4.4%. So we can say that as a thumb rule, the operational costs are going somewhere around 3 to 5% per year. So whatever your budgets are, next year budget is going to be about 3 to 5% more than the previous year's budget. Now, if I'll just break down these costs into the different sectors. Like if we see the crew cost, this is the trend which has started from 2010 onwards for the crewing cost, the increase for the different types of vessel. You can see the tankers, the crewing cost has gone up to 6.2%. So it starts from 100. It's somewhere in the range of about 228 now. So that means it has gone more than double. So if in 2000, tanker master was earning about $4,500, this is what I recall was the wages of a master. Today they are earning almost about $13,500. So even for the bulk vessels, it has gone up by 4.6, and containers about 5.3. Sorry, it's the other way around actually. The bulk is 5.3 and the containers is 4.6. When we see about stores, this is the trend which follows. Again, you can see in every sector. In 2008, probably what happened was the freight rates were very good. Owners had a lot of money. They wanted to do more. They started investing in systems, in stores, in new things. So the costs for everything went up at that point of time. And after that, when the markets crashed, everything started getting down. Most of the companies most of my colleagues working in different companies I speak to, they are still trying, they still say that they manage somewhere close to 2008 levels in today 2016, except for the wages part. The operational cost, they have tried to maintain it at the same levels of 2008 because there was too much of money which was being spent in 2008, probably which was not required at that point of time. In repair and maintenance, it's the same story. The graph's a little bit different. But yes, it has gone up by 2, 2.7 and 3.2. Insurance, 3.7, 4 and 5.3. So the insurance cost in tankers has gone up only by 3.7%. That means that the tankers have performed well. They as compared to the bulk vessels as compared to the container vessels, the number of claims have been less. So somewhere down the line, what the oil majors advocate, the TMSA, the SIRE, it is working. It has reduced the number of claims, and so the costs have come down. And this is something I've done a comparative study for the dry dock costs for the bulk vessels, tanker vessels, and container vessels. I've taken an average of different segments of bulk vessels, Handysize, Panamax, Capesize, and for tankers I've taken Handy, taken Afras, I've taken Suezmaxes, VLCCs, and for containers also the different sizes. So this is the cost in dollars, what we can see. For the tankers, obviously you can see the amount of money spent every year on the tanker vessels during the dry dock is very, very high. Now, apart from this, in my previous slides, what I mentioned is if we can note the trend, the reason why I split it, the operational cost into the different segments is to point out that although all the costs have gone up a little bit, but maximum the crewing cost has gone up. And today, if we are going to have the OPEX more or less as same, the majority, the share of the crewing cost is increasing. So that means we are spending lesser and lesser money on the spares, on the stores, on the services. Insurance is something which we have to pay. So which in a longer run is not very good for the ships, because the money being spent actually on the maintenance of the ships is not good enough, and that's definitely going to affect the life of the ship, their performance in due course. The other costs which are waiting for the owners to come, or which is already there, and most of the owners have started working on it, the ECDIS compliance. We have to install the ECDIS units. For the tanker vessels, it's already there since 2015. For the bulk vessels, it's July 2016. More than 50,000 gross tonnage bulk vessels is from 2017. So this is an extra cost because this is a transition phase where to the owners, because they have to maintain the dual system. I recall probably in the year 2002, 2003, the cost of the charts, publications, and chart corrections, we were subscribed to Kelvin Hughes. So it used to be around $10,000 per year for one vessel. Today, we are maintaining both, so it comes out to be almost about 18,000. So that's almost doubled up. And then with the ECDIS, there is a generic ECDIS trainings. The seafarers have to be trained. On top of that, the oil majors, they want the type-specific trainings to be given. Although there are 2-3 models, you can do it online, you can go and attend a course, but it all costs money. For the communication, we have with the Windows 10 now coming up, they have stopped giving the support systems for Windows 8 or before. So the computer systems on board have to be upgraded. That's a cost. Inmarsat is revising their packages every now and then, where they increase the data size, but they also increase the minimum cost you have to. Then you have to tie up with them for minimum 2 years, 3 years, and in case you want to cancel the contract in between or change into another scheme or another service provider, you have to pay some penalty. Then internet on board is something which is a must today. MLC has not made it mandatory, but yes, it has very clearly specified that this is something what should be put on board, highly recommended. So with internet on board, there are VSATs, there are fleet broadbands. In terms of cost, the difference, I think earlier a communication cost for one vessel used to be somewhere in the range of $900 to $1,000. With the internet, it has gone up to almost about $2,700 to $2,800. So it's almost threefolds. Then with the widening of the Panama Canal, they want you to put some fittings. The cost of this will depend again on the type of the vessel. But yes, this is a cost for which the vessel has to be laid off, or best done when she is in the dry dock. With the sulfur, low sulfur fuels, there are so many types of fuels today you have to live with, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for the ship staff to store those fuels and segregate those. So, like what we did for our ships is when we took them to the dry dock, we made some partitions in the tank so that we can have different type of fuels. Garbage. With the MARPOL regulations now, you're not allowed to discharge the garbages, so it has to be landed ashore. So something which was not even a dot in our OPEX today is, again, I think somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 a year, sometimes even more, for the garbage disposal itself. So these are the costs which were never there before, and these are the new costs which are coming up. And with the energy efficiency and energy saving things going on, and the compliance with the future emission regulations, there are all these things which are coming up. These are definitely going to put a good amount of dent on the owner's pocket, and this is the time when they are not actually equipped to do this, to bear this cost. So we have this data monitoring and reporting verification MRV, which is adopted by October 2016. There are 3 phases. Phase 2 will be the trial period for the verification, and the dates will be set. And phase 3 is the enforcement. The monitoring plans for each vessels have to be prepared and submitted for approval by 2017 August. Then monitoring, the first annual reporting to be done by 1st January 31st December 2018. Reporting, annual emission reports to be submitted by 30th of April 2019, and by June MRV DOC, which will be valid for 18 months, will be issued by the class. So to do this, there are a lot of installations. You have to monitor the performance of the engines, the performance of the emissions on board, and this can be best done by the shore. So you have to use more data. The internet has to be there on board. The data transfer between the ship and the shore, which I believe initially used to be about somewhere around 20 MB to 50 MB. Today it crosses easily about 400 to 500 MB per month. So these are the costs probably which are upcoming, though at this stage is not mandatory, but a lot of owners have already started complying with these or installing on their vessels. Installation of the frequency controllers on the seawater pumps, variable speed drives on AC electric motors to control the speed, torque, directions to give desired horsepower of the motor. Power management system for electrical power generation, voyage planning, weather routing services. I think a lot of classification societies have come with the trim optimization programs. Improved hull performance by polishing the propellers on the fixed propellers, and hull cleaning based on the conditions, and the use of low resistant paint, and the oil fired boiler optimization. Data collection, the use of automated systems to gather data, installations of equipment in engine room, bridge to monitor the main machinery, so that in the CCR, in the cargo control rooms, where a duty officer can actually monitor whether the 2 generators or 3 generators are required, what is the load. So he can always tell the engine room to shut down one if the load is too low. The cost probably will be around $100,000 for this. Then we have the cat fine filters, It's about 10 micron filters which is installed between the purifier and the fuel oil service tanks. Costs about 25,000. Propeller boss cap fins uses waste energy after the propeller to give extra thrust, can save up to 5% of the fuel cost. Depending on the size of the vessel, about 100,000. For MR, probably 75,000. Bigger vessels, 100,000. Power measuring instruments with softwares for the main engine and auxiliary engines to correct performances of the engines. This is about $5,000. Low resistance paint, depending on the size of the vessel, somewhere around 250 to 400,000. Voyage planning, trim and efficiency tool, 5 to 10. Mechanical load dependent on auto lubricators, main engine, USD about 50,000. So these are the costs which are definitely going to increase the load on the owners. Apart from them, there are innumerable new regulations which are coming up, and they're quite a few. I was reading an article on the cyber crime because ships are more and more involved in the data transfer. Now, I think IMO is developing their policies, and they're going to come up on their document on that every company has to have a cyber policy. Then, as I said, because of the lack of training and faster rate of promotions because of the shortage of the officers, there is a low competence level among the seafarers, which indirectly adds up to the operational cost in terms of repair service. Then we have, especially for the tankers, we have oil majors who have very stringent criteria. They do not want to budge. They have requirements like officers matrix. They want minimum of 36 months of sailing time between the master and the chief officer, and between the chief engineer and the second engineer. Between the second officer, third officer should be minimum 24 months. So that is a deterrent that we are not able to promote people faster. So they have to finish their time, and that's a cost. Then also, if the oil majors come up with in their best practices about certain recommendations, so it becomes almost like a mandatory for a ship owner if they need to do business with them to comply with them. Then there is a lot of more sophisticated onboard machinery which is coming up. A lot of automation is coming up. Unfortunately, the crew is not equipped to handle the automation for the new machinery. It's so automized, it's computerized, and that where the seafarers are still lacking. So they are more dependent on the shore or the shore services, or from the technician, or the guidance from the technicians. And anybody who goes on board today, the moment they start from their hometown, the meter starts. So it lands up ending up in a big cost. This is a small slide which we have prepared to just indicate what is going to be the increase in the cost from 2015 to 2016. So as you can see here, the crew wages, if 2015 the increase was 2.4, by the end of 2016 we can see another 2.3% on over and above 2.4. The lubes are going up. So you can see, I think all the costs are going up here. The important thing here is that if we study it very carefully, there are a lot of ways to optimize your systems, what you're using, and save or decrease or at least optimize the cost. And I've done a few experiments, and obviously crew wages or the crew cost being the main cost is the first target, because that is where you can probably save something much more. As it is, the other costs are in comparison is decreasing any which ways. So a careful planning in the crew changes, a careful assessment of the training timely promotions, and placement of the crew as the matrix demands. For example, like if we have a tanker vessel where we have the master, chief officer, chief engineer, second engineer, all the senior ranks at a higher seniority, the difference between the master of a senior slab and the bottommost slab is almost about $2,500 to $3,000 a month. So obviously we cannot put all the newly promoted, all the top four. But if we have all the top four on a senior or the highest slab, it straight away gives an increase of operational cost or a crew wages cost of almost about $6,000 to $7,000 per month. So at the end of the year, it comes out to be almost about $85,000 to $100,000. So yes, although the slide has ended, but I would still like to add one last point, is I have not touched upon the ballast water management here, because that's an elephant in the room, which is actually going to increase. It's going to be much more. No, it's done. Which is actually going to be much more than we anticipate. And what the concern I have, or we should have, is it's not only the availability of the approved systems, which I believe are available now. Most of the older ships they do not have even the space where to install. What is going to be the size of these machinery, this plant, and whether the existing auxiliary engines or the generators we have on board can source enough power to run those plants. I do not know what is going to be the cost, but I believe it's going to be more than $2 million, and I do not know with the prevailing markets for a vessel which is more than 12 years old or 14 years old, will it be worth spending that kind of money on those ships? So probably the time will tell the best solution for those things, but yes, the operational cost is definitely for a rise. And in these desperate times, I'm sure everybody is trying to see or trying to invent new ways how to do things more smoothly, more economically. Because I do not believe that we have an option to ignore things in today's world, because an accident can actually cost much more. So yeah, with that I would like to end, and in case there are any questions, please do let me know.
Just stay on the stage, we want to push that. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay. Can I invite Mr. Dalit to come to the stage to answer some questions? Let me just do a quick recap of what we have heard in this session. We have Captain Peter. He gave us an insight on the real definition of hot and cold layout. And he also gave us many considerations to take into account when you're considering to lay out vessels. And Mr. Dalit has talked to us about the current trends in offshore technology. Offshore is currently in a bad shape, especially in the Far East region. Middle East is still okay. There's drastically reduced rig counts now, and hence the demand for OSV has drastically declined. And he also shared with us additional insight for when you consider layup. You should have proper planning, and there should be involvement of various parties when you do that. And Mr. Sanjay has talked to us about the rising cost for ship owners. He has given us a very detailed presentation about the various cost structures and the various costs that ship owners need to take into account, and how ship owners should, with this knowledge, ship owners can actually try to manage their costs properly in these difficult situations. With that, I open the floor for questions for these two gentlemen.
Anybody?
Hi, my name is Captain Sirpreet. I have a question for Captain Sanjay. with various costs and percentages, are they derived from Emirat Maritime's expenses, or are they taken from the internet, or what are the sources?
No, it's not from Emirat, but definitely the trend is more or less quite similar. Why it cannot be Emirat, or why I didn't want it to use Emirat, because that will be very specific, because every company has got their different cost structures. The capex is different, so it changes everything. We are basically the ship owners, and using our figures will probably may not be in line with what the industry, which is mostly been, the ships are managed by the technical managers. We as ship owners work very differently from the ship managers, so our cost will be very different. So this figures what we have is basically more from Moose Stephens website. So they are the best so far what we can get. They do a very comprehensive study, especially in the operating costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I do have a question for Captain Sanjay. Firstly, you are a very humble man. With all your experience, if you say you just know 7%, I wonder whether I should be even asking you this question. One of the things that I noted you mentioned was cost cutting. The Domicals Ford will fall on the crew cost. I have been doing insurance service for over 15 years, and I have seen that most of the claims that happen falls under the insured peril of crew negligence. In spite of that, the natural tendency of ship owners is to cut costs on the crew, maybe save 5 or 10,000 and end up spending $50,000 to $60,000 of the insurer's money, of which they contribute. They are the main contributors. So where are we going? I mean, even as you summarized, you spoke about crew cost cutting, which I think is as a sailing person myself, I think that is the last thing a ship owner should be doing.
Now, what you mentioned is a very, very good thing. That I think I made a mention of this thing, that sufficient training was not given in last so many years, and that which has actually brought us to the situation where we have a crew which is not very competent or trained, which has posed a lot of problems. But when I said, I didn't say cost cutting, it was more of a cost saving exercise what I did. I'll give you an example what I did, this is something which I've done on my ships, and it's an ongoing effort. This is about, I think 3 years ago. What I did was I did a full survey of where my costs are going for the crew. Started looking for other options. We have different types of unions. There's IBF, there's ITF. The charges, the wage scale for the minimum wage scale, what they prescribe are different. The union dues, what goes is different. Then the composition of the crew, without touching the competent or the senior crew or even the officers. Like we as ship owners, we do not go with the minimum safe manning. Minimum safe manning is something which is a document which is there. On an average, our ships have got 22 to 24 crew members. So we are well over the minimum safe manning. There was a lot of pressure on me to cut down the cost, but instead of reducing the number of people, what I tried to do at that point of time, we have something like trainee OS, trainee Vipers, which they have to go on board to a couple of contracts before they could go as a full-fledged OS or a Viper. Started employing them, replaced them with the OS. Yes, we were bringing in a little of a, what you can say, untrained or a relatively less experienced or no experienced crew. But that was at a very, very bottom level, and also in an area where we are already in excess. I would say that probably I managed to save almost about $10,000 per vessel per month by making these switches here and there. And now also when I'm talking about optimizing, it's not the cost cutting, it's optimizing. the word I would like to use here. I have put into place a lot of procedures. Earlier we used to have a cadet record book. Now I have something similar for even for the officers. They are monitored very closely every time. There's a long-term training program which goes on. Once they finish the minimum criteria as what we have as per the company, they are called into the office. They work in our office for 15 days, given an access to the ship's email, which they have last sailed on, and probably which they have planned for. And in those 15 days, we evaluate them, where they stand, and if they are ready for promotion. Rather than a person who is already qualified or fulfilled the minimum criteria, make him sail for another so many, we are not using him or using his full potential. So that is what I was trying to say, optimizing them rather than cost cutting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uday, can I answer your question a little bit more? Okay, Captain Sanjay. Now basically the OPEX cost is 100%. So 70% is the crew cost, 20% is technical and 10% is operational. Okay. Now what happened, suppose an offshore industry, I'm just talking about it, which was giving us $14,000 a day, now say it's giving only $7,000. To survive this particular one, what the owners have done is basically gone down to the crew, like in our case I can say McLean, okay, and we have requested the ship crew to help us out in this kind of a time to survive. Either I park the vessel as a layup or I operate the vessel. So I only have two choices to make. To make that basically that vessel to operate with all that crew that is required and everything, we have to take something discount from them. So what we have basically offered to them, help us at this point of time, maybe in a 6-month, 4-month time, we should be okay and we'll give them back the prices. So what we are saying is it's a help as a team, because technically you cannot bring it down. Where you need a lube oil, you need to fix up and everything else, technical costs, operational costs, all the thing is fixed. Lesser move fixed. Okay, you can bargain on a frame agreement or something like that. Insurance cost is fixed. That's what Captain said. So there's only a small amount of slot. To get it from the 14 to 7 to operate a boat, you are basically asking crew. Say example, an offshore, a captain was getting at good time $750 a day. For giving him a $50 to be on a ship is still more viable to earn $700 a day rather than to sit at home and do nothing. So basically what happens is when a vessel operates, 18 to 1836 crew get a job. And basically many other people get a job. Either they park the vessel, make deficit, or let's operate it at a cost. So basically what we are saying to the industry is, we are helping each other. Say we approach lube oil suppliers, we approach surveyors, everything. Why the cost is all being tight? It is because the industry driven. It's no choice made by any one person. Is it okay with it? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalit, maybe I have another question for you. It may be a very difficult one. If you look into the crystal ball, when do you think we will ride out of this difficult period of time?
Okay, this is my call again, as somebody said. We are looking at another 6 months of the call when things will be okay. Because the way the prices, all the readings in the newspapers and everything, the prediction market, nobody can actually pinpoint it. But because this hit has taken to Aramco, understanding that everybody's been taken a pinch on this cannot be sustained for a long time. It is a game that was not made, but it has resulted in something. It's an economical war. Everybody has to come back now. So as you see recently now, the oil prices come up from 30 to 40, 40 to 50. But everybody says realistic price is going to be 60 and not more than 65. Anybody gets more than 65, he wins the bet today. Anybody in the room can say it will go more than 65?
By when?
6 months. If it touches 60, everybody is going to get back to the business. We have to stay together for 6 months and hopefully looking at the price should touch 60. 60, the things will start to move. Exploration will start, business will start going back. Because it's unrealistic to go back to 120, 130. It happened, it's a bubble, it will never go back. Most people will never see that price ever. Because if today you're doing completely $10 million or 10 million barrels of the oil that you're making at this cost, then how do you think it will go to 130? Any assumption, any technical answer to that? Nothing. You are producing all the oil today at this price. So you cannot make this particular oil to 130, but 60 should be a very good price. I think all the industry people bet 60 should be a very sustainable price. Business will start moving. 60 to 65 we should see it in the end of this year. But the reason is all going to be very, very steady and very, very slow. At the moment, even from 40 to 50, nobody is moving a rig. Why? Nobody is signing APC contract. Nobody has a belief today that this is going to sustain. You today see we're $10 up. That's it's a 20%. But did you see any rig move? Did you see any handlers moving? Anybody won an EPC contract in the Middle East? No. But the good point is everybody is filling the tenders. I'm going back to office and filling up the tender today evening. This is the time all the oil majors are using opportunity to revise the tenders. So everybody in the office is totally busy, but only filling up the tenders. Everybody is looking every small part of the Egypt, Iran, everything else. Now, biggest thing is Iran, right? We've been hearing it for the last 3 months, that Iran will open, Iran will open. What did happen? Did any boat go to Iran? Did anyone see any boat go to Iran? Nothing. If you go to Iran, you can start working, you don't get paid. So there's a question again there, that this will all take more, I think, 6 months, and hopefully, yes, we should be in a brighter light that day.
Thank you for your insight. I will talk to you again after 6 months to see whether your predictions come true. Just a joke, just a joke. Thank you very much, gentlemen. With that, I'd like to close session 4 of today, and that's almost to the end of the conference. Thank you very much for staying through the conference, and thank you very much to all the speakers who has made very interesting presentations throughout the day, and I learned a lot from them, and I believe you have too. Thank you very much, and let's give all of us a round of applause.
Can I take this? USB?
Thank you, Ms. Yen. Thank you for your support. With that, we come to an end of the conference, but before that, I would like to invite Mr. Durai Raj, General Manager, Aries Marine and Engineering Services, to hand over the mementos to our esteemed speakers. Sir, please. To start with, Mr. Dilip Mehta, Technical Manager, Middle East, McLean Express Offshore. Sir, please. Mr. Sanjay Mehta, General Manager, Emirat Maritime. Please, sir, can we have, sir, please, for a group photo. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to thank our sponsors, the principal sponsor ABS, badge and lanyard sponsors Panama Maritime Authority, registration area sponsor Mubarak Marine, award sponsors Cadmatic Middle East, associate sponsors Total Marine, Marcap, Five Ocean Ship Repairing and Marine Services LLC, and Elegant Ship Management Consultancy Services Private Limited. Supporting associations DCMMI and UAE SA, Middle Eastern Media Partner Robana Safina, Media Partners Marasi News, MFAME, Merex, Maritime Metrics, and oilfielddirectly.ae. Thank you all speakers, delegates, moderators, and sponsors. Hope to see you in all our upcoming events. Thank you all and have a good day ahead. Thank you.